Welcome to VPG's Virtual Water Cooler Chat podcast, a platform that celebrates the rich tapestry of professional diversity, with a particular emphasis on empowering women. We aim to foster diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, DEIA, for all, while recognizing and championing the achievements of everyone as a central pillar of our journey. In our conversations, we explore a wide spectrum of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, creating a vibrant mosaic that enriches our collective understanding and strengthens our commitment to diversity and empowerment. Meet Steve, the data maverick at the cutting edge of legal innovation. Steve earned his BS in Bioengineering with a minor in computer science from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, MS in Computer Engineering from Santa Clara University, JD from Washington University in St. Louis School of Law, and Executive Leadership Programs from Stanford University Graduate School of Business. With a unique blend of expertise in law, product leadership, and data science, Steve is revolutionizing the way we approach legal strategy and decision-making. As patent counsel and head of data science, technology, and operations at Google, Steve leads a team of trailblazers pioneering the use of AI and machine learning in the legal domain. Together, they are breaking new ground, transforming both the practice and business of law with their groundbreaking applications of advanced analytics. Steve's impact doesn't stop there. As a seasoned product leader, he has launched game-changing products that have become staples for Fortune 500 companies and tech innovators alike. His knack for understanding market needs and delivering solutions sets him apart as a true visionary in the field. Steve is also a co-founder at Adapt.Legal, a powerhouse of nonprofit collective driving inclusive innovation in the patent landscape. Teaming up with industry giants like Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and Disney, and now with over 70 members, Steve and the team at Adapt.Legal are leveraging data and technology to empower legal professionals and foster a more diverse pipeline of patent practitioners. Get ready to be inspired by the data maverick as he shares his personal and professional journey, and he helps level the playing field one precedent at a time. Let's get started with today's virtual water cooler chat.
Hello, Steve. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on our virtual water cooler chat. I am really happy to actually finally meet you.
Same here. No, we've been corresponding for a while, and I'm glad we're able to finally connect and find the time to do this.
We got to thank that Gail Sue, man. First question, I'm just going to cut right into the chase. Can you share your story of how you started in patent and why law, not medicine? And why is data important to you? Just a few questions.
Sure. Just to explain my current role, right? So right now, I'm a patent counsel and I lead operations, data science, program management at Google's global patents team. It's a mouthful and super long title, but I do think encapsulate a lot of things that I do, right? Which is somewhat untraditional compared to, a more traditional portfolio management transaction litigation role. One thing to realize is like for a large patent portfolio, large patent team to operate, to execute on this strategy, there's just so much data, so much workflow, so much tooling that's needed to do so efficiently, especially at Google's scale. How I got here, right? So my undergraduate background is in bioengineering. Back to your question, why not doctor? I actually came from a family of doctors. My mom is a doctor, my aunt, my uncle are all doctors. It's a little bit disappointing to my parents still to this day that I'm not a doctor, or at least not a medical doctor, right? So let's just leave it there. So I do have an early interest because of the family background in biology. So, and that can lead to bioengineering, which is combining the more biological science and engineering piece. But I also realized pretty early on, even when I was an undergraduate, I really liked patent. Or at least my version of patent as an undergraduate. I don't think I fully understand what a patent was at that point, but it seems like there's something you can combine being a lawyer and being an engineer and leveraging your science and still work in science at the same time. That sounds pretty amazing. Obviously, I had no idea what patent prosecution is at that point, but the idea of going to law school came in pretty early on. So I have a background in bioengineering. I have a master's in computer engineering, but then I went to law school. It's pretty much straight through. So I never really worked as a scientist or engineer full time at least. So it's pretty much education, lawyer, right? I love law school. It was the best of times, so to speak, right? It's super engaging, intellectually stimulating. It really was really help you learning how to think, how to answer questions, how to identify issues. Some of the professors I had back in law school, super old fashioned. You had to stand up in front of the class. He would just go full Socratic method on you.
Yeah.
It's intimidating. There's something about that, right? It's just very exhilarating at the same time. Maybe I should have been a litigator, but no, but that didn't happen. Anyway, I did graduate law school in a pretty tough economic climate, right? It was right smack in the middle of the Great Recession. A lot of offers did not work out. I was pretty much, end up having to find alternative career to get started because it's just so difficult. Firms were failing left and right at that time. Whatever offer I had was pretty much you had to find a job from scratch because, I lost my initial position. It's always a blessing in disguise, right? Because it really led to me in a smaller, more unconventional law firm or legal company, so to speak, right? So on one hand, I was doing private process work like anybody else would and got really a lot of responsibility early on because it's a smaller firm, right? So you're interacting with clients from almost within a couple of months, right? And then, you're really collecting ideas, doing a lot of client counseling from a very, very early stage, which I didn't realize back then how unusual that was. You met a lot of really cool scientists, right? And you work very close with them. And, I was really prosecuting the biotech space by that biomedical space in that time, right? So you really see the machines, devices are building and the impact it was making. So super cool. But the other part was really looking at large project to help large portfolio to execute on certain initiative, right? A lot of it's around understanding a portfolio, classification, asset tagging, which is something I still do today, by the way, right? But back then, it was this need that has never been fulfilled. But once I get started doing that, you realize the importance of patent data, right? And the ability to manipulate data, ability to understand the data, ability to have the right support to collect the data, that entire chain of ecosystem from beginning to end to make something like that happen, and how technology, data science play in that is on full display. Because, we were charged with classifying a very, very large portfolio in a very short time down to the claim level, right? How do we get that done? And we had to build custom tooling for that, right? So that's kind of my foray into what I would call product management, right? Because, on one hand, I was practicing, on the other hand, I was doing project, and then that kind of evolved into building products to help these projects to execute. That then itself evolved into just building product that is actually being sold. And now, the things I had built in my previous role are used by Fortune 10, Fortune 500 companies, right? So it's very rewarding in that sense to see something you created, because it is a creation process that is then used by actual users and to manage some of the largest patent portfolios in the world. But it also really opened your mind in terms of the different skill set that one can leverage, not purely from as a lawyer, but also from other disciplines, combining them to really form a unique skill set that can help solve big problems, right? That is also how I got to Google for that exact reason, right? It was also in a very untraditional role. When I started at Google, I joined the data science team. I wasn't on the counseling team, right? The reason why I was able to do that because of that experience together as a lawyer, also as a product manager. And that kind of led to the skill set I have. I'm very grateful for having those opportunities to develop these skill sets because, talking back to Adapt, which is how we're connected, it all came out to help Adapt execute at the same time. Adapt is able to ramp up so quickly because we had an eye to execution. I can't take most of the credits, right? But then, the skill set that each one of us brought, including mine, were able to help, develop a platform, develop the dashboard, develop the entire vision, also execute on that. That kind of shows, what, in many ways, what it means to be a lawyer today. This is an evolving thought. I think we're getting to a different topic now, but just to hint on that a little bit, I'm affiliated with Stanford, the Codex Institute at Stanford Law School. This is something that we're exploring there as well in terms of what is a lawyer today? What is a lawyer in general? Because I think we have a very hard time defining what that is. And because the skill set changing technology is becoming harder and harder to define what that is going to the future as well. But anyway, that is my story because I'm really hard to define. I have a lot of different paths and skill set, but I'm also super grateful for it.
Well, I think your non-traditional, between the bioengineering and then legal and then product management, that really makes the story so much more inspiring because through the rejections, you don't learn from successes.
No, I agree.
You learn from, trial and errors.
Yeah, no, there's something to say about attitudes and opportunities and taking opportunities you're given, right? And I think, Googlers are supposed to have 3: respect. You respect the user, respect the opportunity, and respect each other. There is the opportunity in front of you may not be the one you initially wanted, may not be what you dreamt of when you started off your career path. That's not a job I wanted, but there is to be said of grabbing, what's in front of you because there is that silver lining and you never know where you're going to end up with this.
I think that is so true. So my undergraduate was in political science and East Asian languages and cultures.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the line, I met one of my Chinese professor. And then there was also an American professor who's like in law school.
Yeah.
And he keep asking me to go to law school. And I keep saying no. And I'm a very principled person. According to my dad, it's basically stubborn. It's not really, he said a principle. I'm like, you're just stubborn, but I inherited it from my dad, I guess. Yeah. So I had this really good fortune of combining East Asian languages and cultures. And I did take law school classes when I was an undergraduate and when I was in grad school. I enjoyed that aspect of it, but I think I keep thinking that the traditional litigator perception that I was like, I'm not that articulate. I cannot do this. And then so I just find different ways. Other people tell me that, I'm not inarticulate. I'm like, I don't believe you. So I think that has a lot of the Asian culture. How it actually just like you're supposed to be quiet and, not brag about yourself and be humble and just keep working and then people will notice you. Well, maybe not.
No.
Right?
That's very true, right? There's a lot of training programs targeting Asian Americans addressing the exact same thing, right? There's 2 years ago, I did a program here in the Bay Area, Stanford Business School, just for Asian Americans. A lot of things were discussed. It's a super intensive, it's week-long. I encourage you to look into it if you have the time. It's an amazing program. But one thing, we go through negotiation, a lot of different things, and that's all great and it's super useful, interesting. The one thing I remember from that whole week was you gotta ask. Nobody's ever gonna give you anything until you ask. It sounds a little bit strange saying it. Power is taken, not given. Nobody's gonna give you anything until you take the step and ask. You cannot promote yourself in your job. Your boss can promote you, but you gotta ask first. She's not gonna know what you want. And then I think a lot of Asian American, like you said, I'm just gonna do the best I can. People are gonna notice me. People are gonna recognize me. That only get you so far until it doesn't work. And that's where I think a lot of us are having that problem, taking the next step, becoming the leader, becoming the executive, because the data shows, yes, Asian Americans are successful, but to a certain extent. At the very top, senior leadership level, we're doing abysmal, and especially Asian women. They're doing the worst. So they're the worst. So there is some culture about it. But at the same time, though, Ashley, I do think we have to be authentic to ourselves. We are who we are. Our culture is part of us. That is not a bad thing. To be Asian, to have that, the modesty and all that stuff that's traditional, things that are associated with us, right? The hard part for us is finding the balance in terms of how do we keep being authentic to ourselves at the same time pushing us a little bit more. That I haven't figured out yet, but if you go through a lot of these things, you see the problem that a lot of people have is around this issue, which is being quiet, being hardworking, but not asking to promote yourself, to get to the next level, right? Because at some point, somebody has to do it for you. You cannot do that yourself.
Yeah, so I think that what I'm really, really blessed with is that I have the traditional Chinese professor actually nominated me for some language award because I should go the State Department route. Originally, I wasn't going to be going into the legal route because I wasn't going to become an attorney. So I was going to go the State Department research think tank route, that they don't pay as much or much at all. But I was so blessed that I have this particular professor. I think mentorship mentorship is so important. My mentor is the one that asked me, why don't you go to law school? He's a Harvard Law graduate, really great scholar. And unfortunately, he had asked. He saw so much in me that at the time I didn't see it in myself. Yeah. And if it didn't have someone like him that had mentor and actually believe in me, I don't know how it would all end up. Two models that he always share with me. One is nothing venture, nothing gain. Very against like the traditional Asian risk averse mentality. So I was really glad because he really drilled it into me. Nothing venture, nothing gain. Just like what you said, ask. Yeah. You don't ask, you don't know.
No, exactly.
And and then also rejection is not a bad thing. Rejection is basically giving you a sense of redirection. You're not asking the right way this time.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to tailor something else.
Yeah.
So I think that part I didn't learn until I think really after I started my business.
Yeah,
because I was in traditional law firm structure, right? I started doing research when I first graduated. And then I didn't really like it because of the particular work culture that I was in. And so I had to look for a temp job. That's how I fell into legal. And then I have additional mentors, this particular rainmaker at a law firm. And the very first thing that he said to me was that, well, the legal business is sink or swim. It's much more traditional. Yep. No one's going to help you unless you help yourself. That's very old school. We're still friends now. And I actually interviewed his son.
Oh, wow.
His son is a transformation coach.
Oh,
and
good.
Both parents are lawyers. And his son was like, yeah, I got parents as lawyers. I don't need to be a lawyer. Okay, does your parents know that? And he was like, well, we'll find out. But it was really amazing. Like, I have been really fortunate. So I started in construction litigation. Okay. And then at some point I decided, I don't know, I just don't like it so much. But it gave me some amazing litigation skills. I had great supervisory paralegals, and we're still friends. And actually last month, I had my very first workshop based on my book. And then I invited some people, and she's actually at an engineering firm in Reston. Okay. So I was able to just connecting with really amazing people from across industries and learning from different disciplines. I think this is why diversity brings in so many different values.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
Yeah, so that's how I fell into law, actually. Then exited construction and I went to GW for the paralegal program at night. As soon as I finished, I got an offer from Howard, which no longer exists.
Right. Back, when it started. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so that's kind of how it did. And then at some point I went to Finnegan and litigation all the way. I was not a patent prosecution person. Eventually started falling into PTAB. And then my dad passed in 2017. And I have the pleasure too, but also my mom lives with me. And litigation schedule just becomes a lot more difficult for me to manage. And I'm a perfectionist, people pleaser. So I want that outstanding on my evaluation. And I know that I'm not going to get it. I don't care how much I ask. If you have a motion to compel, you are going to work late. So I just think I need to think about something different. Now let's talk about, what is your cultural background? I'm trying to figure out, are you like Chinese or Korean?
I am Chinese descent, yes.
Oh, okay, because Gong, it could be both, I think, right?
It works for a lot of different cultures, apparently. No, it definitely could work for Korean, but no, I'm Chinese.
Oh, okay, because Irene Liu from Hypergrowth, GC, do you know her?
I don't, no.
Okay, she's in the Bay Area. Okay. So I interviewed her. Her last name, Liu.
Yeah.
It made me believe that she's Chinese.
But she's not.
She's Korean. She's married Chinese.
Oh, well, that's different. Yeah.
And then I realized that it was so fun when I'm talking to people. I realized that, she seems like that she would be a finance major and everything. And through our talking, she was like, oh, I also study Asian studies, actually.
Oh, okay.
It was so funny to be able to get to know people.
Yeah.
Besides on LinkedIn. Well, thank you for confirming that for me. If you have to use 3 words to depict Steve Gong, it's a hard question.
That's hard. That sounds like an interview question.
You already got the job. job as the head of data sciences, so you don't have anything to worry about.
No, it's a good question because that kind of allows you to
Self-reflect.
Yes, reflect a little bit, right? 3 words, only 3 words, not sentences.
But you can use sentences. I mean, this is your interview. This is about you.
One word I say is I draw connections from different threads. I think I myself as a connector. So from skill sets, from data, whatever it is, a lot what I do is in my day-to-day, also in my work, is about connecting different people, connecting different projects, connecting different thoughts. So there's part of me just it's almost like trying to see the pattern in terms of what I do and drawing the connection between them. I think that's one word I will describe myself as a connector. Second word I will go with is I'm a very visual person. The dresser or the chest you see next to me is all for the camera gears. I think visual and beauty are actually very important to me. And appreciating that, understanding that from seeing data as that too is, I actually love doing data art. It's also, I think, the second thing I would say, I'm not sure the right word for that is. I should be a little bit better, but I think that's something else that would describe me as well. Appreciating the visual aspect of everything from data to the world around us. Third is a little bit tricky. I do think back to what we were saying earlier about rejection opportunities. I'm an optimistic person. I always see the upside. You approach any problem with a smile on your face. And I try to do that, and I'm able to do that most days. A lot of the challenges, you just take it, you go. And I think that's also something I would say is part of my characteristic. So that was something I did not prepare.
The whole interview, you've been smiling, and which is really, really quite pleasant.
But it's true, right? I get that. I didn't realize it, right? Because, it was just, I'm a photographer. I was on a workshop just recently. Afterwards, I'm saying, I really appreciate you. You're just smiling the whole time. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't realize it. It's just who I am. It is something that not only I'm smiling, not because I'm faking it or anything, right? But really it's just like the optimism and then the feeling you have, right? You really want to approach everything with a smile on your face. And I do that. I try to do at least. So
that's awesome. We talked a little bit about Adapt earlier.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit more about Adapt.
Sure.
You're co-founder.
Yep.
There's some amazing people in your particular ecosystem. How did you guys actually decide to form Adapt?
The idea of a DEI organization that's actually executing. And I'm not saying other DI works are not executing, right? But there is a way to say something that leveraging technology, leveraging data, really measurable impact is hard to find in this space, right? Because it's just so challenging problem trying to solve. It's just something that I've been thinking about for a long time. I actually started working on a project on my own, right? So, hey, how can we looking at using data, using, different methodologies to increase diversity in our field, make it more measurable, make it more accessible, all that stuff. It just about happenstance that, Gail's about to have a conversation with Mike, say, hey, do you want to join? I said, sure, I'll join. That's it. There was no coordination. I was just in the office with her and she was about to get a call. I don't think neither one of us ever met Mike Benz before. And that's it. Then eventually Judy joined. And then that's kind of like the core group that started everything. Back to the skill set we each brought to the table. I think that's something that's really special about at least the early days of Adapt. People are still shocked to this day how quickly we were able to get things done, right? The first version of the platform, the first version of the 3 core pillars, when the mentorship, it happened less than a year. We were just talking. Okay, by March, we're going to do something. By September, it happened. For lawyers to be able to execute at that speed was very unusual, to say the least. We reflect sometime, right? How did we get things done so quickly and, and grew so fast the way we did, knowing that none of us were full-time. We all have very, very demanding jobs, right? If we're to look back, number one is we were all passionate about this in our own way. Gail, using her as an example, has been working on DEI of her entire career. This is nothing new for her. Judy and Mike too. Like I said earlier, I was trying to do things on my own at the same time also. There's that passion to begin with, that this is something we honestly just wholeheartedly wanted to do. That really shows through, because you can't get doing this, with a full-time job you don't believe what you're doing. But that alone, just say you believe when you're doing, want to do it, that itself is not good enough, right? There are a lot of good intentions that only get you so far. I do think because, I'm not saying in-house folks are just better at doing things, right? But in-house folks tend to be more project management centric and try to get things done. And this execution centric mindset, which I think, because initial groups are all in-house folks, because we're used to that, we have to deliver on the project, right? There was the discipline to really push us forward. And, behind the scene, especially near, the first September launch at Law Bridge, Gail and I were just in the office every single weekend. We were just working this days in and days out, and you got to do it. But, part of it is that passion. Part of it is like, we do believe in execution, right? We didn't want this to be, let's just go talk about that, and then that's it. We want to deliver something tangible to the community. It was a hard push. We got it done. And that created the momentum. Once you have the momentum, when other people around you feel that energy that, at least the core group in the very beginning was able to generate, other people wants to be part of it. That's when, when we had that, you weren't able to attend, at La Bridge, we had a whole day of conference about ADAPT's launch. The energy in the room was just electric. People felt, hey, these groups of people really meant what they're talking about. They're really doing something about it. That attracted immediately the second group of folks. And then they're now the primary group now. People from Perkins Coie, people from Uber, they all joined, and they're now taking leadership position. But the momentum that we generated, we're able to still carry through. And now it's almost its own thing, many ways, right? It's much bigger than me, Judy, Gail, Mike, or Wade, right? But now it is truly an entity by itself. But I do think the core principle that we're here to execute and deliver for the community still holds true. And we're still living by that. There is growing pain, right? Before it was much smaller, and but once we started growing, so many projects started happening. It was like, oh man, we need to start prioritizing a little bit because, new people join, new ideas comes up, right? And some of it are amazing ideas, but we're now at a stage trying to balance out how to execute and deliver at the same velocity we're able to do before while, ingesting all these new folks and new ideas into the program. But I still think it holds true that ADAPT is there to really provide the tools, provide the platform, provide the venue for the community to grow, both in terms of diversity, also just for anybody's career to grow in this industry. I think before we were recording, we're talking about non-attorneys' role in IP, which I think they have a critical role in IP. If you look at the career guide we launched last year, right, there was a big emphasis making sure tech advisors, operations, paralegals, right, they have a critical role to play, both, having a diverse skill set that the entire ecosystem needs. They're a part of ADAPT is really looking at just overall career path with an eye towards diversity, accessibility as well. I do think ADAPT is filling an unmet need. Back to, talk about product management. There is a need for what we're doing. And we firmly believe what we're doing is meeting that need little by little, both in terms of open sourcing DEI resources, providing guidance for career growth, and helping to form meaningful connections between a mentor, how you were just mentioning how important mentors are, the connection between mentor, mentee, meaningful connection, not, one time, hey, let's have coffee, right? But going beyond that. And of course, all supported by technology, all supported by data. So both as a tool to help us have the conversation, also as a tool to scale all these efforts up. I do think our approach and our vision is super exciting, and I do think we can shake things up and make a big difference.
I think that's all amazing because I've only joined very recently. I think it's less than a year. And when I first learned about the organization, I learned about this through Gail, It's kind of on LinkedIn, which is an amazing platform itself. And Gail is just so organized. And I think that what ADAPT represents in many ways, just based on my observation, is you guys make things happen.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. I'm not saying other organizations are not, right? But we're...
No. I'm talking about this right now and not comparing with other right now.
Yeah, exactly. Back to that point, we did ask ourselves, is there a need for ADAPT? Right? There are a lot of DEI organizations, a lot of DEI initiatives. Why now? Why this? That is something we ask, right? Because the whole concept of ADAPT is not duplicate efforts. We don't want to say, okay, so this organization are doing this, that organization are doing that, we're going to do the same thing. Why? We're not going to do that. Like I said earlier, our approach is building tools, building, platform, having the forum to really get things done, execute, and support other organizations to do the same thing. And I think that is what makes a difference. But back to your point, it is very much execution centric, right? It still is. And that just happened to be the founder's personality. Like I said, it really generated an early momentum because people can see that this group of people can get stuff done. Action begets more actions, right? And you see that in my day as well. You set a culture for Adapt is this execution-centric organization, and we're still living by that.
I'm going to give you 3 words based on what I think of Adapt.
Okay.
1 is collaborative. 2 is passionate.
Yes.
Because you have a full-time job. I don't know when you sleep.
It's challenging, yeah.
3 is generosity with your time. Time is the one thing that I can pay money, but time you do not get back. Since I joined, I've actually benefited from talking to a mentor, and also I have had a chance to mentor someone.
That's amazing.
For me to mentor someone, that would most likely happen. But for me to be in a network that has such organization to basically gave me someone, I think she is at AWS. We had a really great chat.
That's
and
amazing.
She's in a DC area, and I think eventually we'll go get coffee or something like that. But for this, I don't think that I would actually be in that particular network. And so I just want to applaud all of you guys for this particular effort in different ecosystems too. I mean, you're overall in the tech industry, but you are in competitive space sometimes.
I appreciate that. I'm so glad to hear you're able to connect with people through us, right? So that's exactly what we wanted. So that's amazing.
My mentee actually started at a New York law firm.
That's great.
So I looked her up. She was like valedictorian and really humble and very articulate young woman. Great. So that was really quite awesome. So really should be very happy about, what you guys have accomplished.
Great. That's great.
And real quick, so that we could kind of wrap this up, we haven't talked too much about AI. So for the fact that I'm talking to the head of data sciences here, how do we ensure diverse perspective in product and AI development technologies when you actually lead a team? How do you ensure that there's a diverse perspective when you develop products?
It's a very multifaceted and complex problem.
We don't have the time to do this.
No, maybe part 2, but there are 2 things I want to say about AI, especially connecting back to Adapt and talk about the product aspect a little bit as well, right? I do think AI is going to have profound impact on patent profession. I think a lot of people's initial thinking is, AI is going to help low-level work or the work that attorneys or professional doesn't want to do, then AI maybe can help with that. That's the very simplistic way of looking at things in a way, because what we have seen is AI can actually directly impact that most high-value work as well. And we can talk about the diversity impact of it. So what that means is, there's really a moment of transformation in front of us in terms of how we want to shape our society and how we want to shape our profession, right? Because, back to what I said earlier, what does it mean to be a lawyer? I think people have a very hard time answering that question today, right? Because if you ask, I'm a lawyer, why are you a lawyer? Because your education, because the task you perform, or what is it that makes you who you are? So that is a introspection point that's happening right now. It's been discussed very aggressively in legal AI industry as well, in the community as well, because the task is going to be impacted, right? They could be completely disrupted, completely or even gone or transformed. What is left? It's almost a moment of introspection of what is your humanity? What does it mean to be a human lawyer? What does it mean to be a human patent practitioner? I think that moment is coming to a head very, very soon. Right. And because, the capabilities of the tools themselves, I think we're only scratching the surface at this point. Right. And then the actual use cases are manifesting now. I do think there is a moment of transformation ahead of us. What does it do for diversity? What does it do for inclusion in this new world is something that's very difficult to answer. There is a very negative way of looking at it. I think people are going to be left further behind because only certain people are going to have access to the technology. And there is this conversation that are happening in terms of AI itself is actually can be either a great equalizer, but it can also become a way to essentially divide our society even more. I do think it is a question we have not answered as a profession. Like when Adapt presented our data profession, the decline in the patent profession, a lot of people say, well, it's not a big deal. We don't need any patent practitioner anymore because AI will solve all these problems. But we don't know, right? Because the opposite could be happening, right? Because, now there's a new way of looking at patent, new ways to look at patent litigation, or even PTAB. You could actually create a lot more work. So which way we're going to land, how we're going to land is an open question. I don't think the perspective is that simple. But all that still does not diminish in any way the need for a diverse perspective, a need for inclusive environment that more people can share their perspective and their thoughts, right? I actually think it's more important than ever because AI essentially can help us create this standards of, that we're almost like a platform baseline we're operating on. Like I said, the lawyers are somewhat defined by the task, but task itself can be, essentially highly augmented. That then leads to the human perspective, more importantly, to augment what AI can do. And that perspective is more important than ever to be diverse, to be more inclusive, if that makes any sense, right? Because if we're truly operationalize and productize a lot of things we do, the humanity really come down to the diversity and the perspective we offer. I know we're running out of time, but we can talk about this a lot more. But it's a very interesting topic, and it's also evolving because I don't think anybody has the right answer, both in terms of diversity within AI and AI's impact on diversity. So
let's talk about leadership a little bit. With AI, a lot of people, they would be like wondering, is AI going to be replace human work? I don't know that it will really replace. It will change the landscape significantly, and you have to basically really adapt. So great naming is everything. One of the things that I want to talk about is about the next generation, leading them, and which is really critical part of ADAPT. The mentorship program, amazing.
Yeah.
And I wonder, what is the main vision in terms of mentoring the next gen using the current infrastructure and the mentor and mentee relationship to get more underrepresented communities, to give them equitable access to get into the tech field? Share your thoughts.
It takes a village. It really does. Some of us are lucky enough to find that one mentor that can guide us through our entire life. That's rare. You win a lottery when you find something like that. Maybe it looks like you have a great mentor that help you through many part of your career. But a lot of time, it really takes call it executive board. The different phase of your career, a different phase of your growth, you need different people to help you understand what's going on, to guide you to the next level. So it really is having this board that can stay with you, I think will make a huge difference. Now, all the data shows, right, a lot of these things is a social network. When you're not in a social network, you don't have that. For people who are coming from underrepresented community, who are outside of that network, forming that board is not easy or borderline impossible. What we got to do, right, is not only knowing that you yourself can make a difference, but really helping the candidates or helping these, the students, having a diversity of mentors, a diversity of people that can help him or her to really raise the next level. My perspective may be helpful for one person at one point in his or her career. There are other times I cannot help, right? So it really is, having a collection of people around you that can help you throughout the different phases. I think that will make a meaningful difference. Now, the issue with going into tech, right? So there's a lot of effort on STEM and making sure STEM is accessible. I do think a lot of things we're doing at ADAPT, both in terms of, educational reach out at various different stages, and having this meaningful board of mentors we're hoping to form around candidates could help, in terms of helping to thrive. You do have to be aware of opportunities, right? So we run programs such as Street Law. Kids have no idea this is even happening. Me as a high school student from a underrepresented environment can actually come to a big tech company, the biggest of all tech companies in a way, right? And hear the PCs speak, you see the impact on them, right? The mind kind of opens up, say, hey, this is the thing, I can be here. But until that happens, that opportunity or even that thought that this could be something that he or she can strive for is not even there. There's almost like a spark when that happens, right? Say, oh, this is a possibility for me. So that is the first stage in terms of making sure that people are aware that you can't do this. The second stage to me is then having that group of people able to help you to do this, right? Because you really, to say that you gotta bootstrap it yourself, few people can do it, a lot of people cannot. Back to your point on equitable, when you're outside of the network and somehow have to do this by yourself, you're in a much more difficult, much more disadvantaged environment than say otherwise. I think it's two things, right? It really is knowing that this is a possibility. Nothing's off limit.
I think I'm going to have to invite you back for part 2. I already have so many questions. 2025, Steve, coming back.
Part 2. No, but it is that, right? Because, the thing about street law is you see that on their face. Yeah, there's so much we can talk about, in terms of how we can help people, but there's so much to be done as well. So
what I really wanted to say is thank you so much for you and all the people at ADAPT to really work so hard to make such an impact. I know that ADAPT is now a 501c3. So, that is an accomplishment in itself.
Oh, trust me, it is.
It is. So I think that it's just so inspirational to know all of this and seeing that the spirit of generosity, it came across. So I really wanted to say thank you. BPG really did benefit a lot. Time is something that you do not get back. And you could always donate, write a check, so I think that spirit of generosity is for real. Several of my team young ones, when I have them work on things and they're like, oh, you got Steve Gong, you got Mike Benz, Gail Su, so I really wanted to give them the opportunity. The virtual water cooler chat started out with me actually interviewing a brand strategist. It was actually just not a podcast in that sense. I do not like public speaking. I actually hate it. But if you do not speak up for yourself, who's going to speak up for you? So it's not even just promotion, it's just basic presentation. So I interviewed brand strategists live before it turned into a podcast, because I really need to challenge myself so that I don't become so self-conscious, because it's not about me. Most people don't care about me anyway, so it doesn't matter. That's how it really first got started. Okay. And so I interviewed one of the brand strategists that I went to a webinar because I love learning. After that, I was like, oh, I didn't completely suck. So let's turn it into a podcast.
That's amazing. How you're doing this. It takes time from you as well, right? So we appreciate you allowing us to share our thoughts and getting the message out. So we appreciate all that you do as well.
I think the platform is really important. Sometimes I would have the young ones like Nicole and Kiana, Sydney, Stephanie, all of them, that they needed to have that opportunity to basically be seen and be heard. And it also helped them build their confidence. On that note, Steve, I guess we'll schedule for part 2 at some point.
I will do that. All right.
You will. Well, I hope to see you soon. Probably in September.
Probably in September.
In person.
I'm excited.
So, I'm excited too. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.